Most prophecies are fulfilled before we can even know they were prophetic. A lot of them do not make any sense until after they have passed. Even after they have passed, we still need to have understanding of the prophecy to connect it to history. There is one prophecy that we can follow, watch, and date when it happens. We cannot date it now, but we will after it happens. What is that prophecy? Today, we will discuss it.
It is Thursday, the 3rd of November, and welcome to Daniel 11:33, the most exciting Bible study on YouTube. If this is your first time, please leave a comment, introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and share this channel with others. Now, let's get back to the prophecy with a date.
Turn your Bible to Daniel 9. Today, we are studying Daniel's 70th week. This one prophecy tells us a lot. During this study, take good notes and pause when you need to. There will be a lot of information, and you will not be able to retain it all as long as we're moving along. We are going to look at verse 24 to 27. These three verses tell us 7 things. The first thing is when the Messiah would come to earth the first time. Then it proved the identity of the Messiah. It also foretold the crucifixion. It foretold the destruction of the city of Jerusalem and the temple. It prophesies the event that will trigger the final 7 years to Armageddon. It provides clues to the identity of the Antichrist. And it establishes the 7-year timeline to the end of the age. The Daniel 9 prophecy covers a 490-year period. It is given to us in 3 segments, beginning in verse 24. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city. So what is meant by 70 weeks? 70 weeks is 70 one-week periods, equaling 490 years. The weeks are not literal weeks, but weeks of years. That's how we get 490 years out of weeks. But how do we know that they are years? Well, verse 27 says, in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. I'll say that again. In the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. And on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate. Now let's turn to Matthew chapter 24. Verses 15 to 21. Jesus is talking to his disciples. But right now, as we read the words of Jesus, he's speaking to us. He is telling us the abomination of desolation, which take place in the middle of the week when the sacrifices and offerings are halted, which start the great tribulation. Let us now look at the scriptures that directly tell us the weeks are indeed years by telling us the great tribulation will last for 3.5 years. Daniel 7:25 says, he will persecute the saints for times, and half a time. Time is 1, times is 2, and half a time is half a year. So you have 3.5 years. Daniel 12:7 also gives us that same time description. Revelation 11 verse 2 They will tread the holy city underfoot for 42 months, 3.5 years. Revelation 11:3. We are told God's two witnesses will prophesy for 1,260 days, 3.5 years. Revelation 12:14. Israel is protected by the eagle for 3.5 years. Revelation 13:5. He was given authority for 42 months, or 3.5 years. This would be a great place for you to pause the video and read those scriptures again. Let it sink in and get that aha moment. So let's recap. If the last half of the week or years is 3.5, then the first half is also 3.5, which means the entire 70th 7 is 7 years long. Now that we know we are studying Daniel's 70th literal years, let's break down the 490 years. Daniel 9:25 tells us the 490 years begins with the commandment to rebuild Jerusalem. What the actual dates are is not what's important. What is important is to understand what happens at the end of the three segments of years. Verse 25 informs us there will be 7 weeks or 49 years, and 62 weeks or 434 years. Verse 27 informs us there will be a final week or 7 years. Again, the three segments are 49, 434, and 7 years, totaling 490 years. So we are right back to the 70 weeks of years, or 490 years. Daniel 9:26 says the 434-year segment will end with two major events. The Messiah will be cut off, and the temple and the city of Jerusalem will be destroyed. Did a messianic figure appear in the world shortly before Jerusalem was destroyed? Of course, yes. Jesus came and fulfilled every single one of the prophecies about his first coming. Was Jesus cut off like the prophecy said he would be? I think being crucified would certainly qualify for being cut off. That gives us absolute proof that Jesus was the Messiah. What we have to consider now is the gap between the death of the Messiah and the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. There was a gap. That is why the prophecy was given to us in three segments. There are three different periods. If there were no gaps, then the prophecy could simply have been given as a 490-year prophecy. Instead, we are told there would be 49 years, 434 years, and a final 7 years. Based on when the temple was destroyed, we know the last gap, the final 7 years, is about 2,000 years. We are currently living in the gap period right now. The prophecy that we can follow, watch, and date is found in verse 27. It is the event that will trigger the final 7 years to Armageddon. The Middle East Peace Treaty starts that 7-year countdown. Let's look at verse 27. There is a lot of information in verse 27. Let's unpack it with 5 questions. Who is the he that will confirm the covenant? What is the covenant? What is the confirmation of the covenant? What is meant by stopping the sacrifices? What is this event called? The abomination of desolation. Question 1, the he does 3 things. He confirms the covenant, he brings an end to sacrifice and offering, and he commits the abomination of desolation. Daniel 11:21-22. states that the Antichrist will be the prince of the covenant. So it's the Antichrist that will confirm the covenant. Daniel 11:31 says that the Antichrist and his partners will take away the daily sacrifice. They will stop the sacrifices. Daniel 11:31 also says that the Antichrist and his partners will place the abomination that make it desolate. The he in Daniel 9, verse 27 is the Antichrist. Question 2. What is the covenant? Well, Genesis 15, verse 18. On the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your descendants I have given this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. God made a covenant with Abraham that the Holy Land would be given to his descendants for a homeland. This is referred to as the Abrahamic covenant. And speaking of the Abrahamic covenant, did you all miss what happened in September of 2020? Some of you may remember. The Abraham peace accords were signed. It's not the actual peace treaty we're waiting on, but international governments are already acknowledging Abraham as the father of peace in the Middle East. It's already happening, y'all. It's happening. Question 3. What is the confirmation of the covenant? The Antichrist, with many, will confirm Israel's right to exist in their homeland or promised land. The he is the Antichrist. Remember? Question 4. What is meant by stopping the sacrifices? Israel will be allowed to rebuild her third temple, and animal sacrifices will be resumed. The Antichrist will stop those sacrifices. Question 5. What is this event called? The abomination of desolation. Matthew 24:15. Jesus said the abomination of desolation would stand in the holy place. The holy place is in the temple, or at least on the Temple Mount. Once he stops the sacrifices, he will claim to be God. The Apostle Paul breaks that down for us in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 and 4. The Antichrist will actually sit in the temple of God, claiming to be God. The abomination of desolation is when the Antichrist will stand in the temple proclaiming himself to be God. So, what prophecy has a date on it that we are to follow and watch? When we see a peace treaty signed between Israel and the Palestinians, along with the international community, which confirms Israel's right to a homeland in the Middle East, they have a right to exist in their homeland in the Middle East. It places the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement, and it allows the building of Israel's third temple. That is the beginning of the final 7 years to Armageddon, which ushers in the 3.5 years of Great Tribulation, when the Antichrist, in the middle of those 7 years, stops the sacrifices and commits the abomination of desolation. Let me end with this statement. When the peace agreement takes place, we will know that there are 7 years remaining until the second coming of Jesus Christ.